the poem, we will find that all of the history that we have read together or we have studied or that exists, the history that exists between the African Americans or the Negroes as they called them, and between the history between the Negroes and the white Americans, the white racist Americans, I said that all of that history has been incorporated, the sentiments and the emotions that the history evoke. একটা ইতিহাস যখন একটা দেশের যখন ইতিহাস থাকে তখন সেই দেশের সাহিত্যের মধ্যে সেই ইতিহাসটা সবথেকে বেশিভাবে ফুটে ওঠে। So if you are reading about if you are reading an Indian poem, an Indian English poem of the 1800s or of the 1900s, you will find, or even if you read modern Indian or modern Bengali poems যেগুলো এখন লেখা হয়, আমরা দেখব যে আমাদের we get certain sentiments of the age, যেই সময় কবিতাগুলো লেখা হয় সেই সময়ের context, the historical context, it is always existent in a poem. The poet always takes context into his poem. If the of course in an imagined fashion. ইতিহাসটা তো লিখছে না, Langston Hughes is not writing history, he is composing a poem. And the fact that he could condense or he could construct a poem about the racial history of the Negroes within such 11 short lines, that is what has made the poem so much very important and so very immortal যে আজকেও আমরা এটা পড়ছি, that a poem about a revolution, a poem about a race, a poem that essentially originated in a very small city of America called Harlem. Harlem is a city of America. It is a town in New York actually. It is a very small locality in New York known as Harlem. ওই জায়গাটার নাম হলো Harlem, and that was actually the place. আমি এই মানে একদম ইমিডিয়েটলি কবিতার প্রসঙ্গটা ডিসকাস করব পরের ক্লাসে, and that will be our last class. The next class will be our last class. So I will be studying the teaching you the immediate context of the poem, মানে পোয়েমের যে ইমিডিয়েট কনটেক্সটটা, মানে ধরো একদম সেই শতাব্দীতে বা সেই দশকে what was happening in that particular decade when Hughes is composing the poem, like things like Harlem Renaissance is happening. He is also influenced by a text, by another text of John Locke called The New Negro. We will discuss something about that new Negro today. So we will see these are all the immediate context. Yet steps after steps of historical racism that has existed in America for about 200 years, for 2 centuries or more, 3 centuries or more, racism against the Negroes, racism against the natives, we will find that all of these sentiments and emotions have been condensed or concentrated by Hughes in his poem. So let's read the poem. So the very first line we see that he is saying, what happens to a dream deferred? What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Now this is a very famous metaphor that I have just marked. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? A very famous metaphor and comparison. There is also a novel. Raisin in the Sun in literature. Find out who has written that. That's your homework. Just a Google search will do. এক্ষুনি করে নাও, এক্ষুনি করে নিয়ে দেখো Raisin in the Sun what it is. Apart from the literary association, there is also another reference that I'm telling you shortly. So he's saying, what happens to a dream deferred? Deferred means to make late, to delay. So what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? So this is the metaphor that Hughes presents to us. So if a dream is like a fruit, then what happens to the dream when it is delayed? So he is not talking about a day's delay or 2 days delay. He is talking about the dream of liberation, dream of freedom for the black African Americans, not just legally but also socially, social freedom. সমাজে আইনতভাবে slavery was abolished in the 1700s. যখন Abraham Lincoln was the president, I had told you during our history classes, I had discussed that Abraham Lincoln had abolished slavery in the 1700s. But even after that legal abolition or legal freedom of the slaves or the Negroes or the natives, we find that social stigma still remaining. The social stigma as in the social normative or the social convention, the social norm rather, that Negroes are inferior, that the natives are inferior, and it is only the white Americans who are superior, and therefore racism is the correct way of life. This is the social stigma that I am talking about, that still existed even after Abraham Lincoln abolished slavery in the 1700s. I think in 1755 he abolished slavery. The law was passed, the Emancipation Proclamation. So even after that, till 1900s, when Hughes is composing that poem, about 250 years down the line, that dream of perfect, of absolute freedom of the Negroes or of the natives from racism, that has still been deferred. It has been delayed for so long, and a fruit that has been kept uneaten, a fruit that has been kept for 200 years, the fruit of freedom, that has dried, that will dry up. Hughes visualizes, this is a vision of the poet, that what happens to that dream which has been deferred for so long, for generations after generation it has been delayed, and we are yet to experience true freedom, freedom from the minds, freedom from the heart of the people of America. And now it has dried up. It has dried up like a raisin dries up when it is kept under the sun. It has dried up, and it is without a fruit, without any of its juices, a fruit without any of its nutrition. It has become a dead fruit. So that dream, that vision of a dream that Negroes had, a dream which was also had by Martin Luther King. Some of you must know the famous speech that Martin Luther King had delivered in the 1900s, that I have a dream. I will discuss that with you in the later class a little bit. Martin Luther King had given a speech, and lots of thousands and thousands of people had come to witness him, and he had died. He was shot, he was assassinated just after the delivery of that speech. And that speech is very, very famous all over the world because of this vision that King also proposes in front of the Americans, that I have a dream. I, being Martin Luther King, as a representative of all those African Americans who had been marginalized, who had been ostracized in the society, who had been socially stigmatized, against whom this social racism had existed. He, as a representative of the black African Americans, he was talking about a dream that he has had. I have a dream, where he says that I have a dream where my girl, who is a black African American, and another girl who is a white American, sits together in school and learns together, forgetting about the differences, forgetting about the very minimal differences that exists between their skin color. So that was the dream that King was referring to. And that dream, if we associate it with the dream of Langston Hughes, Hughes says that that dream, when it is left off, delayed without realizing its truth, it dries up. He asks that does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? This poem is full of metaphors, and this poem is full of very powerful associations. So he says that what happens to this dream of freedom? If it is delayed, does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or is it like a wound The sore that he talks about over here, sore কথাটার মানে হলো wound, as in ব্যথা, আঘাত লেগে থাকা. So whatever that is a sore. A wound, a physical wound is synonymous for a sore. So he's saying, does it fester like a sore? Fester মানে হলো ছড়িয়ে যাওয়া, বা ধরো whenever we have a cut anywhere on our body, ধরো কোথাও কেটে গেছে, পায়ে কেটে গেছে, হাতে কেটে গেছে, what happens if we do not cure it? It spreads and it rottens, পচে যায়. ঠিক আছে? If there is an open wound on our body and if we do not attend to it, if we do not give it medical attention, it rottens and it starts smelling. So he's saying, or fester like a sore and then run. Does it stink like rotten meat? So this is the wound that he refers to, the wound that has been inflicted constantly over the entire race of the Negroes. He says that dream of freedom from racism in America, if it is delayed any longer, that it has been delayed for so long, he's asking then, what happens to that dream? The next comparison that he gives is that it's very lively. This comparison is very lively. He says that if this dream has been delayed for so long, then what has happened to it? Has it dried up, or has it become like an unattended open wound which is now rotten and it is stinking? It has been kept unattended. It has been kept just like a dream for so long that I am afraid it has become like an open wound and it has festered, এটা ছড়িয়ে গেছে, it has become rotten and now it is stinking. Then he says, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet. So this is the metaphor. He associates the history of racism to an open wound. Open wound কেন বলছে? Open wound because if we move back to the study of our history, we will see that even after the Emancipation Proclamation, or even after racism was abolished legally, there existed a thoroughgoing social racism in the minds of the white Americans. Okay, so there were laws even after the Emancipation Proclamation. There were laws. I think আমি এটা নিয়ে আগেও বলেছি, still I'm writing it in the chat box. The Jim Crow laws. The Jim Crow laws were something that propagated or something that promoted the idea of separate but equal. Separate but equal. So you can see the politics in this statement, in these laws, that you are equal in the sense that that a Negro and a white American is allowed to enter a movie hall. Yes, so they are equal in that way, but they cannot sit together. So there are separate rows for Negroes and there are separate rows and seating arrangements for the white Americans. So separate but equal. This is the social stigma that I am talking about. So he says, he compares that these racial sentiments of white America that has remained alive, like a dream remains alive, yet it has been delayed for so long. The dream of liberation, the dream of perfect freedom from the minds of the white Americans, that freedom, that has become like a sword. It has been delayed, and Hughes is afraid that it will become like an open wound, which it has been. An open wound means no doctors have attended to that wound. So no lawmakers, no presidents, no more ministers, no social activists, they have done anything that could improve the condition of racism that still existed in America. So it is like an open wound, and Hughes is afraid that it will fester and then it will run. Run money, খুবই মানে খুবই নোংরা লাগবে এই ভিশনটা, বাট বেসিক্যালি ইট ইজ লাইক একটা কোথাও একটা কেটে গেছে আর সেটা সেই কাঁটাটা পচে গেছে আর সেখান থেকে কষ বেরোচ্ছে, ইট ইজ ব্লিডিং, ইট ইজ নট ব্লিডিং, আদারওয়াইজ হিউজ উড হ্যাভ ইউজ দ্যাট ওয়ার্ড ব্লিডিং টু to make us associate with his sentiment better. But what he wants to, the metaphor that he wants to present is even more drastic, is even dirtier. He wants to present to us an open wound that has rotten, that has gotten rotten. As a result, the skin has also gotten rotten. So if it is the body of the Negroes, or if it is America that he's talking about, if America is the body, then this open wound of racism that exists in the country, it is making the body rotten. And he says that একটা কোথাও একটা কেটে যাওয়ার পর অনেক দিন রেখে দেওয়ার পরে দেখবে ওটার ওপরে একটা লেয়ার পড়ে যায়, একটা নতুন চামড়া তৈরি হয়ে যায়, yet একটু আঘাত লাগলেই বা ওই চামড়া থেকে কনস্ট্যান্টলি কষ বা এরকম পড়তে থাকে, ইট কনস্ট্যান্টলি ইট উজেস আউট সিরাপি লিকুইডস, আঠা আঠা করে এরকম কষ বেরোতে থাকে। আই হোপ ইউ ক্যান আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড হোয়াট আই এম ট্রাইং টু সে। সো এখান থেকে বেরোতে থাকে, ইট ইজ এ সিরাপি লিকুইড, সিরাপি সুইট, দ্যাট হি সেজ syrup is something that is made from sugar and it is sweet, and here Langston Hughes is using that metaphor of a sweet syrup over this open wound, যে কষ্টটা যেটা একটা ওষুধ না লাগানো বা ট্রিটমেন্ট না করা কাটা ছেঁড়া থেকে বেরিয়ে আসে। So this social stigma of racism and the dream of liberation that has been delayed, it has become, Hughes is afraid that it has become like that open wound, and now it is oozing out liquid and it has become rotten. Not just the wound but also the body, the skin over which this wound has been made, that is the country of America. And then he says, maybe it just sags like a heavy load. This is another very beautiful in the sense, beautiful বলতেই তো এক সেকেন্ড, হ্যাঁ beautiful বলতেই আমরা বুঝি সুন্দর, but for here I am using the word beautiful in order to address to the powerful metaphors or powerful comparisons that Hughes is making. He says that, okay, if I'm talking about a dream, maybe it has not dried up, maybe it is not like an open wound, maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Sags মানে কি, ঝুলে পড়া, okay. So what is he referring to? Very clear here is that he is referring to an old person. He is referring to the skin of a very old person. তো যে কোনো একটা বুড়ো লোক বা বুড়ো মহিলা তুমি দেখবে their skin, it sags, ঝুলে পড়ে, স্কেলেটনের উপর থেকে ঝুলে পড়ে। That is something that shows us the age of a person. A person is aged, a saggy person is an aged person, and for that aged person, his or her skin is also a very heavy load for his or her own body. So Hughes is now referring directly to that history of racism that has existed in the continents of America, generations after generations being inflicted by the wounds of this racism. আমি তোমাদেরকে অনেক কটা সিনেমার নাম বলেছিলাম, আই ডু নট নো, হ্যাঁ এখানে স্বপ্না দাস has written something in the chat box. She is writing that sweet represents American dreams of equality and freedom which are denied to most of the African Americans. Yes, true. The sweet syrup is also a metaphor for the sweet American dream. American dream মানে, what is the American dream? আমি এটা অবশ্যই I will discuss it in the next class, but just to put it very shortly, there was a person called W.E.B. Du Bois. আমি small letters এ লিখছি, so this is a proper name. W.E.B. Du Bois was an American scholar. He was an African American scholar, and he was a political activist, and he was writing an essay called The American Scholar. Here he was talking about to free himself or free the Americans from the European tradition of literature. European colonialism, Americar oporeo cholchilo. Europe had a rule over America as well. The West, the British, they had a rule over America as well. So Du Bois was writing that in order to get true freedom, we must come away from that European style of literature, European style of living, European style of society, and develop, make our own history and write our own history. That is what the American scholar is all about. And this American scholar is based on the concept of the American dream. What is the American dream? Again, very briefly put, American dream is nothing but the endeavor of an individual or the perseverance of an individual, the desire of an individual to work for himself or herself and to bring success from that work all by himself or herself. মানে আমি নিজের ওপর ভরসা করে, according to my own beliefs and principles, living an honest life, I will become successful. The individual that is given more and more importance in this concept of American dream. Individual dreams and individual endeavors. আমার মধ্যে কতটা ক্ষমতা আছে to bring my personal dream, to realize my personal dream into reality. That is the American dream. And this is the dream, or this is the idea upon which free America, free from the European colonialism, free America was based on. Free America was constructed based, or it was founded, the idea of free America was founded on this concept of the American dream, where each individual is given the opportunity to progress by the government, and where it depends upon that individual to rise up the social ladder and become successful. This is also the dream. This dream can also be associated with Martin Luther King's dream. This dream can also be associated with Langston Hughes's dream. That dream which is now rotten, and that dream which is now like an open wound that has dried up and it has a crust over it, and now there is syrup coming out of it. It is oozing out liquids because now it is rotten, পচে গেছে, কাটা জায়গাটা পচে গেছে. And now that syrup is no longer the sweet syrup of the American dream, rather of this deferred dream of racial freedom, of freedom from racism. And then he says that maybe it just sags like a heavy load. So if you have watched one of those movies that I had referred to you, a movie called Help. So if you see that movie, you will see that there is a particular scene, or there is a particular character of a very old lady, of a very old black American lady in that movie. And she narrates a particular event in her life. She says in the movie that she is almost not believing the truth herself. She says to her granddaughter, she says to her daughter, I think, or to her granddaughter, I've forgotten. She says that I was passed on from my master to his son like a furniture, like a property. This is very much like the Dred Scott case that we had read together in our history classes. Like a property, this woman was also passed on from her master to the master's son. Will, it was written in the will that the slave, I have forgotten the name, that the slave is to be passed on to my son. So this is a lady who is narrating the history not of a furniture, of a card, of a house, but of herself. And when she is narrating that history to her daughter or to her granddaughter, whoever that was, she almost cannot believe it herself. That, can you believe it, that me, a human being, was passed on from one person to another like a property, like a furniture, like a non-living being. So that is the generational history that I am talking about. Generations after generations being inflicted by this institution of slavery, which has existed in America, even if not legally, but the racism still exists. আমরা এখনো দেখতে পাচ্ছি যে আমেরিকাতে ইনসিডেন্টস হচ্ছে, ঘটনা ঘটছে, যেখানে আফ্রিকান আমেরিকানস or black Americans are being killed by white Americans out of racial prejudice. রিসেন্টলি অনেক রকমের ঝামেলা হয়েছে ইন দ্য ট্রাম্প অ্যাডমিনিস্ট্রেশন, এখনো হচ্ছে, till now there are protests that are being carried out. Black Lives Matter, this protest, the revolutionary thread that is still continuing, so it is still there. And this is the old history that Hughes refers to, that now it is just sagging like a load. So we, the young generation, we are carrying the weight of all that history that has been inflicted upon my yesteryear's generation, my fathers, my mother, our fathers, our mothers, our grandparents, and it is to be inflicted, it is to be repeated upon our children as well. So now it is like that old skin that is sagging over the body of America, this sword, this dream that has been deferred for years, for decades, for centuries. Now it is just like an old man's skin. It is heavying the body of America. It is like a load over America, and America does not even care anymore. Then he says the very important line with which he closes in his poem, or does it explode? So up till now, we see that when he refers to the dream, he's talking about it very passively. The dream is not harmful, the dream is not scary, the dream is not fearful, the dream has been deferred, it has been delayed for so long that Hughes says that suppose it has dried up like a raisin in the sun, suppose it has festered like a sword, and then it is running sweet, syrupy liquids of rottenness. Maybe it is now like an old woman's skin hanging heavy on the body of the country, on the body of the person. Or does it explode? This line is a very active line. Now he says that maybe that dream which has been deferred, it has become like a time bomb. It has become like a time bomb, and it will explode. So he asks that, does it explode? Then what happens? It will explode as in all the anger, all the repressed desires, the desires and the drives of all those individuals, of the Negroes, of the natives that have not been paid attention to. They have become like a time bomb, and it has been deferred for so long that I am afraid that it might explode and engulf and destroy the entire country, the entire society altogether. And this is what the poem is. It is just this short, and it is so very concentrated that this is the power of the poet actually that we are talking about, that the poet does not require any more lines or any more words in order to express what he feels about this falsified American dream, about the failure of Martin Luther King's dream. And therefore the speaker asks, what happens to a vision or hope of a community when this vision or hope is continuously put off or delayed? He asks, will that dream wither away? Will it wither away? Will it wither away with old age? Will it shrivel up? Will it shrink in size like a fruit left out in the sun? Or will it become painful like an infected wound and then leak out pus? We say pus in medical language, that liquid that oozes out of an open wound. It is called pus, P-U-S. So then will it become will it become smelly and disgusting like meat that has gone bad? The speaker proposes, he talks about a fifth possibility. He says that unfulfilled dream will simply become a load over the dreamers, and it will weigh them down, it will slow them down, as they have to continue bearing this deferred or delayed dream. Finally, the speaker offers a last alternative that this can also happen. Maybe the dream will burst outward with energy and it will demand to be recognized, it will demand to be attended to. This is basically the summary of the poem and nothing much more. This is the summary, is very simple. The poem is very simple to understand, yet it is the context which is loaded with so many meanings, with so many significations. Okay, so I will not begin with the immediate social history right now. That is for the next class. I will prepare a PowerPoint presentation and it will be easier for you then. আপাতত তোমাদের কোনো প্রশ্ন আছে? Do you have any questions or any queries to be cleared today? Then please come up with it. Anyone has anything to ask about the yes
ma'am, it dry up like a raisin in the sun. এইটা আগে বলবো?
আচ্ছা বলবো আরেকবার, sure. See, he is talking about a dream, right? The very first line he says that what happens to a dream deferred. So this dream, what is this dream? This dream is nothing. It can be three things. It can be three things, but however it is just one thing. So তিনটে আগে আমি বলে দিচ্ছি. The first thing is that it is the American dream that he talks about. The American dream of individual freedom. যেখানে each individual has the right to make choices for his or her own life. যেখানে each and every individual will be given the opportunity to rise up the social ladder, to improve his or her own living conditions. That is the essence of America. Why do we think that America is great? Okay, why do all Indians try to run towards America? Because India te je jinishta nei, that we do not have individual freedom over here. If we take one decision over here, we are afraid, how does it affect my family, my mother, my father, my brother? Maybe if someone has a husband or a wife, how does it affect them? How does it affect my children? How does it affect the political party in rule? How does it affect the local gundas that stay in my para? How does it affect the auto wala? How does it affect the rickshaw wala? আমরা সবকিছুকে নিয়ে আমাদের ভাবতে হয়. We do think one decision we take, it has in its background 100 decisions. But in America, it is the individual decision that is given most priority. That is the foundation of free America. That is how America was built. That is the idea upon which free America was founded upon. The founding pillars of America is the essence of this American dream, that each individual will be given the opportunity to rise up the social ladder, and it is and everything depends upon that individual, যে তুমি কতটা খাটতে পারছো, তুমি কতটা কষ্ট সহ্য করতে পারছো, কারণ তোমাকে the space for improvement will be provided by the government, by the country, and the country does provide its citizens with all kinds of opportunity. ওখানে health benefits, educational benefits, insurance benefits are top notch, the best in the world, and that is why the people have equal opportunity over there, and that is why people from all over the world run to America, because individual choices are given preferences over there rather than political or social choices. And that was the dream that upon which America was founded upon. So if that is a dream, that is the American dream, then what happens to that dream when it is deferred? So does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? This is the metaphor that he gives, that it is like a fruit that has been kept under the sun for so long unattended that now it has dried up. It is a dried fruit is a useless fruit. It has no nutritional values, it has no juices, যেটার জন্য আমরা fruit মানে ফল খেয়ে থাকি, it has no nutritional values. It is basically an old dried up fruit which we throw away. And it is the speaker, he addresses the idea that deferring a dream or delaying a dream may lessen the dream itself, may reduce the quality of the dream itself, making it feel more unreachable as it fades away. The poem suggests that the deferred dream could dry up. It could dry up, that it has the potential that if the dream is kept lying around or kept unattended or kept unrealized, kept unrealized for so long, then it will dry up like a raisin dries up in the sun. This is the metaphor that he gives, a comparison that a dream that has been left unattended for so long and a fruit or a raisin that has been kept under the sun for so long. Both of these things, they dry up and they become useless, eventually to the point that we throw it away. So a dream must not be deferred for so long. That is what he says. বুঝতে পেরেছো? Okay. Anyone else has anything to ask? Then please come up. You can write it in the chat box if you want.
Ma'am, hello.
বলো.
Ma'am, ওই লাইনটা একবার বলবেন, does it stink like rotten meat or crust and sugar over?
Yes.
Like a syrup.
Yes. So this is a elaborate metaphor that he gives, that Hughes gives. This part is an elaborate metaphor that Hughes gives. He compares this dream. He compares the American dream. Now, third line ta theke he compares it to an open wound. So he says that Hughes suggests that a deferred dream, it could fester like a sore. Fester কথাটার মানে হলো, fester মানে হলো ছড়িয়ে যাওয়া. Sore is a cut or an open wound, আর fester মানে হলো ছড়িয়ে পড়া. That means আমরা যদি বলি যে something has happened on your legs, leg or your hand যদি কোথাও কেটে গেছে, তার আমরা যদি ওটাকে মেডিকেল অ্যাটেনশন না দিই, তাহলে ওটা পচে যেতে শুরু করে, ওটা ছড়াতে শুরু করে. that cut, it spreads like a festered wound. So he says that a dream that has been unattended is like an unattended wound. If it does not get all the medical attention that it requires, then it will fester, and that it will stink like a rotten meat, like any meat that has been kept under the sun, unattended, unwanted, then it will stink like a rotten meat. So the dream is also like that. The dream, it has been delayed for so long. Hughes is afraid that it might just start stinking like meat starts stinking when it has been kept under the sun unattended for so long. So my dream, the American dream also, or the dream of the Negro also, it has been delayed for so long that it might just get rotten like a meat and starts stinking. Each of these images, they suggest something spoiling, losing potency, or outright decaying, যেটাকে আমরা পচে যাওয়া বলি, which is perhaps exactly the outcome a racist society which hopes to maintain the status quo might want. So, a racist society, a society that is racist, just one moment. A society that is racist, which the American society was at that point of time, a racist society, suppose it is the American society where the white Americans are superior, of course, they think that they are superior, of course. So there are constant revolutions, there are constant political revolutions, social revolutions that is happening within the country, and the white Americans, they are seeing this. They are seeing the Negroes demanding for the fulfillment of a dream. They are witnessing Martin Luther King give speech to 20,000 people, 16 to 20,000 people who had gathered at that speech. They are witnessing all of these people listening to a speech about a dream of a Negro, dream of equality about a Negro. So what this racist society, the society of the white Americans, would want is that they would want this dream of the Negroes to remain unattended. They do not want anything to do with the dream. A racist society will want just this, that this dream becomes rotten, it becomes spoiled, it becomes unusable. So dreamটাকে এতটাই ডিলে করানো হবে যতদিন না it is no longer useful, যতদিন না it is no longer even remembered by the dreamers, that the dreamers themselves forget about this dream. This is what any racist society would want. Such a society wants to see this dream of racial equality lose its potency, lose its nutrition, lose its usefulness. And that is the image that Langston Hughes wants to present in front of us. The society, the racist American society, wants this dream to be deferred to a point that it becomes like an old man's skin, useless and heavy. But Hughes says that this deferred dream might also explode. That is also a possibility. একদিকে যেরকম সম্ভাবনা আছে যে এই ড্রিমটা ডিলে হতে হতে গিয়ে পচে যাবে, গলে যাবে, এটা থেকে এরকম পাস বেরোনো শুরু করবে, and it will start smelling, it will start stinking. But on the other hand, এই সম্ভাবনাটাও আছে that it will explode and it will engulf or destroy all of the society, irrespective of white color, irrespective of black color. This is what Hughes wants to say. বুঝতে পেরেছো?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other question? Anyone else has? Acha, Shoumili Hajra has asked something. Each and every lives matter instead of black lives matter. Isn't it like putting ointment on all over the body, not concentrating on the actual wound? Yes, this is a very good question and a very critical question also. Okay, let me see. So, you see, let's take a very contemporary example. ঠিক আছে, ইন্ডিয়ার থেকে বেশি বেটার এক্সাম্পল অফ কি বলে ওটাকে সোশ্যাল স্টিগমা আমরা আর কোথাও পাই না। আমাদের ভারতীয় সমাজে যত রকমের ভাবে পার্থক্য, যতটা ডিফারেন্সেস এক্সিস্ট করে আর কোনো সমাজে করে না। সো লেটস টেক আ ভেরি কন্টেম্পোরারি অ্যান্ড রিসেন্ট এক্সাম্পল. I would really like to hope that you have heard about the Hathras incident that has happened very recently, just last week or last to last week. Hathras, that rape incident that has happened in UP, the state of UP in India. So what happened over there was that it was a rape incident that was committed against a Dalit. A Dalit is a racialized section of the society. So what you have to understand, this same question can be put. You can ask that why do we need to say that a Dalit has been raped and not a woman? That question is not wrong, but it is wrong in this context. Why? I will tell you. See, if it would have been a woman, if it would have been any woman, then the crime had been stopped till the rape. Okay, till rape. So if a man is raping a woman, the sentiment that a man has is that I am superior. Same kind of sentiment hi thake. Racism mein bolo, jativadite bolo, all of in all of these arguments is the same sentiment that one feels that he or she is superior to the other. Jei karone it is justified that I torture you. It is justified that you remain inferior. This is a generalized sentiment over any kind of domination. Rape is also a kind of physical domination that we see. So here what happened to that woman, because she was a Dalit, particularly because she was a Dalit, was she was burned alive while her family was kept locked by the police. Why did they do it? Because the so-called racially superior or the upper caste people over there, they thought that this Dalit or lower caste woman should not even have the chance to get justice, should not even have the chance to blame us, the upper caste people. This story should not even come out into the society, because the upper caste people, we will be affected by it. So this story must be killed right now, and she should be burned and killed or removed from this society altogether, because a lower caste woman cannot accuse a upper caste man for any event, for anything that he might have done. The lower caste woman or the lower caste people, they do not have any right. They do not have any right to come in front of the TV, to come in front of other people, to demand justice. The idea of justice is removed for all lower caste people. So it is important that we ask the question that why is it that a Dalit woman underwent such kind of torture? Of course, a rape against a woman is rape, is violence in its true term in anywhere of the world. But particularly in this case, it was a Dalit woman against whom this rape was conducted. And the fact that the upper caste people, they thought that it is okay to burn her alive because a lower caste woman should not even utter the name of an upper caste man. Forget about a police report, forget about coming in front of the media and accusing him. So here the question is also same. If you are asking that all lives matter instead of black lives matter, you are actually not paying attention, or you are not paying attention to the very specific kind of injustice that existed against the Negroes, that existed against the natives. They were ostracized, they were marginalized because of their skin color, which is not the same in any which is not the same in any for any other part of the world, for any other history that also records torture, that also records social stigma. It is their skin color that is important in this racist sentiment of America that exists. So if it is the skin color because of which they are marginalized, because of which they are historically tortured, they are historically ostracized, then why should you not say that black lives matter? Because it is that sentiment that should be removed in the very first place. First, the difference of the skin color must be removed. Let them come to the common platform of humanity. আমাকে তো আলাদা প্রথমেই করে দেওয়া হচ্ছে কারণ আমার চামড়ার রং কালো বলে, আমাকে তো মানুষ হিসেবে ধরাই হচ্ছে না। So how can I say that each and every lives matter? I have to say that my life matters. My life matters, and that is why I have to include the skin color in my revolutionary statement. Black lives matter. If I say that each and every lives matter, then actually I am not paying attention to the very specific kind of historical racism that existed against the people of my skin color. I am not paying attention to that history of generations that has existed. বুঝতে পেরেছো? That is why the specific historical document needs to remain, কারণ ওদের against খুব নির্দিষ্ট একটা অত্যাচার অপপ্রচার হয়েছে যেটা সবার সাথে হয়নি, because all human lives matter এর মধ্যে তো white Americans are also included, but these racial ostracization did not exist against them. It existed only for and against the black African Americans, the Negroes, the natives. So why shouldn't the revolutionary statement also include this specificity of race? Black lives matter. If they can bring out laws like Jim Crow, if they can say that you, because of your skin color, as a slave, then why when I am writing a revolutionary statement, why cannot I express my sentiment of being a black African American? Where is the shame in that? What is wrong in that? Do you বুঝতে পেরেছো আমি কি বলতে চাইছি সৌমিলি? Are you satisfied? Are you convinced with what I said? আচ্ছা বলো।
আমি হচ্ছে একবার আমি দেখেছিলাম এক কমেন্ট সেকশনে একজন বলছে যে কিছু একটা কারণে এমনই মানে মিনিং করছে যার জন্য মনে হচ্ছে যে হোয়াইট লাইভস ম্যাটার, এরকম একটা দেন অন্যরা বলতে আরম্ভ করেছে যে হোয়াইট লাইভস ম্যাটার যখন বলছে তখন ওকে মারা, কিন্তু এটাও তো ঠিক নয়। মানে হোয়াইট লাইভস ম্যাটার আমি সাপোর্ট করছি না, মানে যেহেতু হোয়াইটরা একদিন ধরে ব্ল্যাকেদের ডমিনেন্ট চলে এসেছে, কিন্তু কাউকেই মারা উচিত নয়। হোয়াইট লাইভস ম্যাটারের জন্য তাকে আরেকজনকে মানে স্যাক্রিফাইস করতে হবে, এরকমও তো কোনো হয়
না। মানে তো নেই, তুমি যেটা বলছো ঠিকই বলছো, অফকোর্স। মানে রিটালিয়েশনে কি হয় যখন আর কি, এই যে বলছে না যে হার্লেম ল্যাংস্টন হিউজ নিজেই বলছে যে অর ডাজ ইট এক্সপ্লোর। তো তুমি ভাবো একদিন যদি এই যে অল অফ দিস থিংস দ্যাট হ্যাপেনিং, একদিন যদি অল দিস আফ্রিকান আমেরিকানস অর দ্য নিগ্রোস দে ডিসাইড দ্যাট আই এম গোয়িং টু bring a revolution, that I am going to fight against this racial sentiment that has existed for 400 years in the continent of America. আর যদি আমি সত্যি একটা if it is in actuality a time bomb that is exploding, if all of those people they come together and start a rebellion, then what do you think happens in that battle? In that battle that ensues, in the battle that start or follows, then of course there will be many lives lost irrespective of my skin color. Violence and retaliation and war is just like that. যুদ্ধের মধ্যে একটা জেনারেল নিজের সোলজারকে পাঠায়, কিন্তু সেই সোলজারটা মরে গেলে দ্যাট জেনারেল ডাজ নট কেয়ার, because that is what happens in a war. That now it is not me saying, this is what happens, this is what how the world is built, that when people retaliate, একজনের ওপর অত্যাচার হচ্ছে, অপপ্রচার হচ্ছে হচ্ছে বছরের পর বছরের ধরে, জেনারেশন সাব জেনারেশনস হয়ে যাচ্ছে, কিন্তু এই জাতটা যখন একদিন উঠে আসবে ইন রিবেলিয়ন, do you think that only those people যারা মানে যারা অ্যাকচুয়ালি তাদের উপর এই অত্যাচারগুলো করেছে খালি তারাই অ্যাফেক্টেড হবে না? ইভেন দেয়ার ফ্যামিলিজ উইল বি অ্যাফেক্টেড। মেবি দে ডিড নট হ্যাভ এনি পার্ট ইন দিস, হয়তো তার বউ বা তার বাচ্চারা কেউ কিছুই করেনি, বাট দে উইল অলসো বি অ্যাফেক্টেড ইন দ্য ব্যাটল দ্যাট উইল এনসিউ। কারণ তুমি ভাবো যে যদি একটা নিগ্রো আছে যার আগেনস্টে, যাকে কটন প্ল্যান্টেশনে কাজে নেওয়া হয়েছে, ঠিক আছে, তো সে ঠিকঠাক করে কাজ করতে পারছে না বলে তার 3 বছরের বাচ্চাকে আর কি নিয়ে নেওয়া হলো, বিক্রি করে দেওয়া হলো। সো ইভেন দ্যাট কিড ডিড নট ডু এনিথিং, বাট হি ওয়াজ অ্যাফেক্টেড। তো যখন এই নিগ্রোটা এসে ধরো তার মালিককে মেরে দিল, অফকোর্স দ্যাট মাস্টার্স চাইল্ড উইল অলসো বি অ্যাফেক্টেড, দ্যাট চাইল্ড উইল গ্রো আপ ফাদারলেস। তো দিস ইজ আ হিস্ট্রি অফ ভায়োলেন্স ডাজ দিস টু ইউ, ইট ইজ আ ভিশাস সাইকেল। অ্যান্ড যখন ভায়োলেন্সের সাইকেলটা যখন শুরু হয়, এই চাকাটা যখন শুরু হয়, তখন দিস সাইকেল ডাজ নট কেয়ার অ্যাবাউট এনিওয়ান দ্যাট ফলস আন্ডার ইট। That is why it is actually essential to find out what actually happened that began this history, and we need to go back to that history and learn the specifics about it, and then come back to teach or to preach what we have learned. We practice it in our daily lives so that we do not repeat those same activities, and that is a small change that we begin, and we believe that maybe this change will remain. এটা আমাদের বিশ্বাস, আর বিশ্বাস ছাড়া আর কিছুই আমরা করতে পারি না, ঠিক আছে?
মানে ওটার জন্য চোখ বুজে হচ্ছে প্রোটেস্ট করলে তো সেই একই জিনিসটাই রিপিট হচ্ছে।
তো একই জিনিসটাই তো রিপিট হচ্ছে, আবার তো তাই জিনিস হচ্ছে। তুমি ভাবো 2020 সালে এসে ওখানে রেসিজম নিয়ে রিবেলিয়ন্স হচ্ছে। উই উড লাইক টু থিঙ্ক যে আজকে
মানে হোয়াইট পিপলরাও আছে, মানে যারা বিদ্রোহ করছে, আবার ব্ল্যাক পিপলরাও আছে।
নিশ্চয়ই এক বিদ্রোহ করছে। আমেরিকা কেন, মানে আমেরিকা ইজ নট অল ব্যাড, আমেরিকা ইজ অলসো আ কান্ট্রি ওয়ের দিস থিং অলসো এক্সিস্ট, যেখানে হিস্ট্রি অফ রেসিজম ছিল। নাও উই হ্যাভ white Americans who are supporting the cause of Black Lives Matter. True, it's of course it is true, but as I said, when revolution builds up, it is like a snowball. একটা snowball কিরকম হয়, একটা স্নো কাভার্ড পাহাড়ের চূড়া থেকে তুমি যদি একটা পাথর ফেলে দাও, তাহলে ওই পাথরটা it catches snow around it, আর ওটা বড় হতে থাকে, আর এত বড় হয়ে যায় যখন নিচে আসে, তখন maybe it will destroy an entire village. That is a snowball effect. So এরকম ভাবেই হয়। See, this dream that has been deferred for so long, it has now become a time bomb. একটা বোম যখন ফাটে, when a bomb explodes, it does not see or it does not care about anyone that it affects. Does a bomb care about কার সামনে ফাটছে? না, ওটা ফাটবে যখন it will affect everyone who is around it, maybe even that person who has made that bomb. So this bomb is dangerous for everyone equally, and this is actually the topic of the poem that Hughes talks about. See, this dream that has been deferred is afraid. He is afraid. তুমি দেখবে কবিতাটার মধ্যে একটা ভয় আছে, there is a fear that is expressed in this poem, that does it explode, ওটাকে দেখবে italics এ লিখেছে। He does not want it to happen. He is asking a question that it has been delayed for so long, what will happen if it explodes one day? He is also afraid of it. He does not want it to happen. আচ্ছা, আর কেউ কিছু জিজ্ঞেস করতে চাও প্লিজ? একজন কেউ স্ক্রিনশট নিয়ে, মানে টোটাল স্ক্রিনশটটা নেবে, খালি নিজের নামের না, পুরো স্ক্রিনশটটা নিয়ে আমাকে পাঠিয়ে দাও একটু, আমি অ্যাটেন্ডেন্সটা দিয়ে দেবো। আর কারোর কিছু প্রশ্ন আছে? Does anyone have anything else to ask?